Welcome to Real Talk with Reginald D. I'm your host, Reginald D. On today's episode, I had Dion Dawson. Dion Dawson is the founder and chief dreamer of Dion's Chicago Dream and the CEO of Cosmic Crate. Dion turned a vision on Chicago's South Side into a movement that's feeding thousands of families every single week. Welcome to the show, Dion.
How you doing, man?
We're doing good, man. Doing good. Thank you for coming on the show with me.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So, Dion, tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what your childhood was like.
Childhood was amazing. I think when you think about childhood, I think how you experience it is different than kind of how you reflect on it. So while I was in it, I think, it was amazing. I think it was random at times, but being the youngest of four boys, being raised by a single mom, it was different. And when I got older, I started learning about some of the things that I didn't have growing up. You know what I mean? So I realized it wasn't so common moving from place to place and having to stay at a shelter from time to time and, not really having things to eat when you wanted and different like that. So, now I look back and I'm able to kind of hold that balance and, the duality of having a mom and brothers that loved me and being lucky to have that love, but also growing up without a lot of the things that I should have been able to have access to.
Yeah, absolutely. I can relate to the stories, the single mom story, man. Been there, done that. So
Absolutely.
we
Absolutely.
kind of built different,
Uh-huh.
when we
Absolutely.
come up,
Absolutely.
So, Dion, you're called a chief dreamer. What does that title mean to you beyond just business?
Well, Chief Dreamer, you know, when my team and I, when we were discussing titles and creating roles, I understood that, no matter what, I am the founder. That's not going to change. And when it came to the role that I played, was going to be the CEO role. But the name is something that is important, unique, and also, it illuminates whatever your approach is. And so for me, I said Chief Dreamer because dreams can be as small or as big as we make them. And with my team, I'm tasked with making sure that not only is my team always dreaming, but always we're trying to go after it. We're always trying to make sure that in achieving whatever the goal is, or whatever mission we're fighting, we're making sure that, I'm leading that from the front, from the back, from the middle, with everybody by myself. And so it just felt right.
Yeah, and the thing about it, people don't understand a lot of times when you're trying to achieve something, there's levels to this thing. You
Hmm.
reach one level, there's another level you got to go, and there's another level you got to
Absolutely.
go. So it's levels to it. So,
Absolutely.
Dion, can you tell us about your two companies? You got Dion's Chicago Dream, and you're the CEO of Cosmic Crate.
The Chicago Dream is a nonprofit social enterprise that we created almost 6 years ago, where we fight food insecurity through last mile delivery and logistics. So it's just a lot of word salad to really say that we're the opposite of the pantry. Instead of people coming to us, we go to them. Instead of us hoping that they can receive donated food, we only provide what we purchase. We purchase fresh fruits and vegetables. And instead of leaning and relying on volunteerism, we actually create jobs in the community. And so when you look at it as a whole, we utilize last mile delivery. A week's worth of brand new fruits and vegetables are delivered right to the doorstep of recipients all over Cook County here in Illinois, which is the second largest county in America. That is something that we started from nothing, grown to almost a $7 million organization and social enterprise. And then it allowed us to then create the for-profit that is owned and managed by the nonprofit, which is Cosmic Crate. And what Cosmic Crate really is, Cosmic Crate is a software and a platform that allows small and medium businesses to utilize everything that we learned with Dion Chicago Dream by creating a platform where they can connect CRM and touch points, last mile delivery and fleet management, and inventory and procurement. And so when you're thinking through that, Cosmic Crate is the system for small and medium businesses to be able to not say, I don't know. So you're connecting what you're procuring to who your customer is, and then being able to dispatch the last mile delivery routes, all of these talking together, all of these connected together. And so instead of, purchasing 8 different tech pieces or products, you have this one thing that can tell you so much about your business and allow you to scale and grow it organically.
Wow, that's amazing, man.
Appreciate it.
That's amazing.
Thank
So let me ask you this: was there a defining moment where you realized your life was about more than just success, but about impact?
Well, I think the beautiful thing about that question is up until this point, my life was never about success. As a Black man, as a professional, you're not successful until you're deemed successful. I was never treated as if I would be something. And so for me, this unlocked when I realized it was about happiness. And I realized that instead of trying to prove to everyone that I am special or that I can do it, this was the first time where I didn't try to do that. It was really out of blind ignorance and wanting to serve something outside of myself. And so I was just so lucky that that moment really lined up with having the opportunity to like find my passion and my gift. But, it's crazy. Like, do I feel like I'm successful? Sometimes, it depends on who's watching. But have I done things and do I feel like I put it all on the line? Absolutely. I think that is what success really is did you do everything you could? Sometimes you're not going to decide how it's received, but did you do everything on your side? That's what it's about.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's the thing. You can't say it like this. I don't think you can label somebody as successful or call something a success unless you put it all on the line, like you said. If you half
Absolutely.
step with it, you play with it, and it is what it is, it's not that's not successful. So what problem did you see in your community that most people were ignoring, but you couldn't unsee?
I'll start by saying I don't think this problem of feeding the community or just making sure people have access to fresh and healthy options is something that anybody ignored. I think that's why we lack innovation. I think we've tried to focus on this, but we're not asking ourselves the difficult questions. We're not asking ourselves, like you asked me, what is success when it comes to feeding our communities? What is success when we treat food insecurity like it's hunger when they're two different things? You know what I mean? Food insecurity, by definition, is the lack of consistent access to healthy options. So if we use a pantry model approach, if we use a hunger approach, we're not solving the issue because it's not fresh and it's not consistent access. And so when we talk about what I saw, if anything, it was the opposite. I saw everybody focusing on it. But outside of the focus and the intent, we weren't judging the execution. We want to do it, but we want to be great at it. I didn't see people wanting to be efficient and effective and getting it right and being great and scaling amazing operations. I saw the opposite. I saw people who wanted the pat on the back to be the currency. And as a result, I asked myself, I said, what is success? And if it's feeding people, then we have to be judged by how many people we feed. And if it's feeding people healthy food, we have to be judged by how many people we feed healthy food. And if it's consistently, then we have to be judged by how consistently we do it. It wasn't complicated. It was actually quite simple.
Yeah, it was. That's real simple. Because if you
Yeah.
judge each category, that's how you put everything together.
Yeah.
That all comes together. Because like you
Absolutely.
said, you could have all these dreams, you can have the want to, it's more than just showing up. Like you said, you got to execute.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what life, at a whole, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So you built something incredible. But what did the struggle look like in the beginning that people don't talk about?
I'm going to go a little different here. It wasn't really a struggle. I think the framing of it is important. I think there's difficulty in everything, but I'm lucky in that before this happened, I walked in a room and in 2017, I believe 2017 ish, and they told me my mom had kidney cancer. And if you've ever been affected or afflicted by cancer or by someone with cancer, you realize that's what a bad day is. You realize that's what hardship is. You realize that's what difficulty is. That's what the hard thing is. I can't take on trying to fight a problem that needs to be evolved and innovated in and think that my hardship is harder than the people I'm trying to serve. And so in the beginning, at the time, and still I'm having a time of my life, were there days when we didn't understand how we were going to purchase the food? Absolutely. Was there, deliveries early on? What was it? I'm rocking and I'm doing a lot of different things. Absolutely. But, even with your podcast, there's difficult moments that people don't see. who's to say they're meant to see them or know about them? You know what I mean? Sometimes we have to accept that those things may never come to light, but it's because this thing is bigger than those moments. And if we put too much focus in on that framing, I cannot remember more of the difficult days because my life has been so difficult already. So I'm lucky and I'm blessed with perspective. A difficult day is not knowing how you're going to eat. Difficult day is sleeping on a bus. A difficult day is going from one person's couch to the next. You know what I mean? So early on, this was the first thing in my life I ever fought for. And I woke up every day and I kept choosing it. And that's the beauty of the choice. Like, we have a choice. So is it really difficult if we keep coming back? Is it really difficult if we decide that we're gonna slay this dragon? Nah, it wasn't. There's way too many good days and way too many moments I've been lucky enough to be uplifted and protected and having a village and having mentors and having all of these things to even keep it. 'Cause sometimes you know this, sometimes you don't want to remember. You know what I mean? The things we remember define who we become. Some things will be difficult, that's fine. I don't mean it's worth remembering.
Yeah, you hit that right on the head, man. You hit that right on the head. And like I say, a lot of people get so wrapped up in themselves and every little thing that doesn't work right, it's like the biggest setback in the world, and it's really not that serious. You try
Yeah,
to look at somebody else's life and they say, man, that could have been me.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I know a lot of people, I'm like, man, I'm blessed, man. Even though I have some days, I look at somebody else's day,
Absolutely.
I'm like, man, hey, I'm blessed regardless. So
Absolutely.
a lot of people believe that food insecurity is just the way it is. Why do you believe it's actually solvable?
Well, I think, I'll tell you, I think it's manageable. I think that what we see is the need to eat will never change. Something as simple as eating will always be required for life. Then it's safe to say and, conclude that there will be people for the most part until this next big jump, hopefully into the next iteration of whatever society is, that there will be people who will not be fed or nourished as much as others because of the system that we're in. And so if we change the framing to saying, we can help manage it because you need that consistency. Remember, consistent access to healthy options. So if we build in that consistency, then we can talk about managing because it's a relationship. And so, I don't have to think it's solvable to know that it has to be manageable. It has to be managed. It has to be sustained and consistent. And through that, it then becomes a challenge of meeting the moment and answering the call consistently. And as a result, it is not this big thing because I don't feel that they're being truthful when they say they want to solve hunger. How can you want to solve hunger when you fed somebody one time in a month? How can you say you want to solve hunger when you're spending more to talk about the little you're spending on feeding people? And so I just think that framing and definitions and guidelines are extremely important in this work. And I think that I've been successful. My team has been amazing and successful and impactful because we make sure that we understand language holds weight. The words that we use will be the things that we're judged by. And we don't want to, tell people, hey, we're gonna solve hunger. No, we're gonna manage food security. So that through that word manage that we're not going anywhere and we're taking responsibility.
Yes. And the thing about it, I've always battled with this in my mind. Now you the expert at it. But I was battling this in my mind. I was like, man, how can like people just be hungry in the United States? Just say the United States.
Yes.
So we can do everything else, you know, but feed people that's hungry and throw money at everything else.
But that's because I think even if we take away, you know, how things are going right now, if you really ask yourself, we've never been set up to feed everybody. If we said today we got the money to feed everybody, we don't have the infrastructure to actually do it because we saw it in the early days of the pandemic. We're one bad day away from our food system being overexposed and completely shocked again. And so that's where Dion's Chicago Dream and Cosmic Crate comes in, is that no, like we're gonna solve the problem with whatever we have, and not the problem of hunger, but this problem of having a disconnected and dark food system. So that as resources come in, they can flow to the people that need it. But right now we don't have that. And that's the issue that I'm really trying to get to.
Yeah, man. Damn, man, I love your vision.
I appreciate it, man.
Yes, sir. So, what separates someone like you and your vision from someone who can execute on a high level?
Nothing. I don't see any difference between anybody else and myself. I think it's actually, you know, J. Cole lyric that I always, one of my favorite is he say, I'm just a man of the people, not above but equal, and for the greater good I'll walk amongst evil. And it reminds me of me being no better or no worse. You know what I mean? And so, I have my flaws and I have my things I have to work on. I also have the things that make me me. And so it's not seeing myself as different. It's actually seeing myself and everybody else. And that humanness, that humanity part of it, that I don't have to lose because everybody else wants to put it down because it's so difficult. So difficult to fight social issues while being faced with social trauma. So, a lot of leaders ignore it or they stay away from it because it doesn't feel good. You know what I mean? But it's the opposite for me. It allows me to still feel human. It allows me to remember that, this thing is going to go fast sometimes it's super slow. But the thing that I control is what I put into it. But it's because I'm actually just a regular guy that loves to instill in people the belief that, they're greater beyond their wildest dreams. And if you can inspire people, if you can motivate people, if you can get them to believe that tomorrow will still come and they'll be able to figure it out, you'd be surprised at what we can do.
Yes, influential leadership, man. That's what it's all about. That's what
Yeah.
it's all about. So, you advise Fortune 500 companies now.
Yeah.
What do big organizations get wrong about impact?
I think, I'll tell you this, and I want you, you can take this and I want you to think about it after our interview and kind of as you do your great job of having conversations and having your platform. Entrepreneurs in traditional business focus too much on execution and not intent. And social entrepreneurs and nonprofit and charity focus too much on intent and not execution. So I think what they're getting wrong and why there's this civil war between the business and social sectors is that we have to understand is that because of the system that we are on top of, the foundation is capitalism. Where the money ends up is extremely important. When we think about all of the models that have, lasted the test of time, a lot of it has boiled down to the good and values of that person until further down the line it was able to be codified. And what I mean by that, and an example of that is, the having free breakfast across the country was preempted by free breakfast from the Black Panthers. So through the good and through the social focus of an entity or a person, until it can be codified and scaled and spread, it is dependent upon who created it to keep it alive. And so when I think about that, I think that we just have this situation where there's so much ambiguity. Because one side only focuses on making money, and the other side only focuses about doing good. Not understanding that the foundation both of them operate under is capitalism. So if time is money, and we want to change it, we cannot change it without living inside of the system, extracting the value from the system, and then maintaining our core values until it becomes codified and scaled.
Yes, that's well put. You know, I like that. I like the way you put that because it all has to come together, man. I mean, as long as it's divided, it's never going to bring the impact that it should,
Hmm.
at the end of the day. So, we talk about faith, purpose, and resilience. What keeps you grounded when the weight of impact gets heavy on you sometimes?
I think for me, I try to stay even keel. You know what I mean? There's going to be hard days. There's going to be, great days. But I think finding the joy when I don't need to be told that something should give me joy. trying to just have that natural level of appreciation in spite of. Everybody's work is difficult, but that doesn't define the work. The work is actually beautiful. The work is actually worth it. The work is actually, for people other than myself. And so I have to make sure and I have to remind myself, like, man, okay, it's not the best day. Man, it ain't the worst. And I think on the flip side, I'm like, man, it's a pretty cool moment. But also, it'll be okay.
Have you ever doubted your assignment?
I don't think there's doubt in an assignment. I don't think we're taught to understand how to look for our assignment. I think you can't tell me, and you let me know, Reggie. Like, has there ever been a time where you were sure of something beautiful and refuted it? No. It was only when you weren't sure if it was beautiful. So I think that when we talk about the assignment, I don't think anybody wants to doubt their divine purpose. But when you're not taught and you're not cultivated and you're not trained to see value in yourself, to see value in something outside of yourself, then how could you then be confronted with your assignment and be able to translate it?
Yes. So then, what's something you had to unlearn about success to step fully into your purpose?
I think the biggest thing that I had to, well, I won't even say unlearn. I think just I had to choose and keep choosing and understanding that it's always this recommitment. It's just a cycle of recommitting. I think we expect it to be one choice, but the assignment is a consistent choice. You're always having to choose. You never stop choosing.
You choose so much throughout the day. People don't even know how many how
Man,
many
man,
times they choose throughout the
man.
day. I mean, thousands of times
Yes,
throughout the day.
every single day. It's in your actions, it's in your feelings, it's in your emotions, it's in, everything you do. And so that's the choice. You always have to keep choosing.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So you work with major organizations like the Chicago Bulls and GoFundMe. How
Yeah.
do you stay authentic while scaling partnerships?
I think you have to know who you are. Being authentic is being authentic to you. And you can't be authentic to you or what you're doing if you don't know who you are and what your true north is. And so understanding that when you're scaling partnerships have to be valuable to both sides. So I'm really good at partnership because I start partnerships by asking, how can I give you value? So many partnerships we always want to take, but instead it's the opposite is how do we give value?
Yes. And that gives it direction.
Yeah.
When you first start out, because I tell people when you try to partner with somebody or try to do something with somebody, if you don't have direction coming at the gate, it's not gonna make it's not because everybody gonna be thinking one way and thinking another.
Mm.
This is what I got for you, this is what I can help you with, or will you just help me, blah blah blah. Then it all comes together, then you know which way to go.
Mhm.
So you share stages with major leaders. What's one lesson that stuck with you that changed how you move?
Tell people all the time. I've been able and, lucky and blessed to be in the same room, share a stage with President Barack Obama. And what I always walk away from or from him with is appreciating time, you know, and understanding like, being patient with how we experience a room, how we interact with the room. I remember the first time a few years ago, and I got a chance to speak and introduce him. So I was able to, speak for do a 5-minute talk and then introduce him. And I'll never forget just being like, man, okay, kind of thinking I'm pretty good. And then he spoke, and I said, oh, I got some work to do. That's the lesson. The lesson is always understanding that, you know, things could be better, things could be worse, you know? But intentionality is important. How you experience time, how you appreciate time, how you show up as yourself, but demand to be better, you know?
Yes, yes. Always got to grow, man. Always
Hmm.
got to grow. So, Dion, if you could sit down with someone who feels stuck, broke, and overlooked right now, what would you tell them about turning pain into purpose?
I would just tell them that I love them. And I would tell them I would want them to love themselves and that they matter. And even when they don't think they have a purpose, they still do. And they've always had one. And I know how it feels for the phone to not ring. I know how it feels to feel like you're on that island, but also being there, it saved me. It allowed me to be okay with being alone. It allowed me to be okay to be lost in thought. And as a result, it allowed me to appreciate presence and share space and understand that, okay, I can do this. And if they feel stuck, it's okay because we've all been stuck. That don't mean you go stay stuck. If you've been lost, it's okay because you will be found. But just understanding that all of these things are temporary. So as long as you can stay even keeled, you'll understand that I may be lost now, but I won't stay lost.
Yes,
I
sir.
may feel like it's not worth it now, but it will be.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's all part of the process sometimes.
Absolutely.
It's all part of the process. So what's next for you and how big are you really thinking?
Oh, I mean, I'll tell you this. I don't think big or small. I remember when my mom had cancer, just recording her voice so that hopefully I can have memories. And now I look up and my mom is still here. And, you know, not having to have a 5 or 10 year plan. Just knowing that if I'm alive, I'm going hard. That's the beautiful thing, Reggie, is wherever I'm at, I'm going after it. And I don't care whether it's leading two companies or babysitting or cutting grass or working at a library or driving a bus. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like that's the beautiful thing about it is understanding that, the position doesn't really define, the dream. Is you can be whatever. I just know that as long as I got breath in my body, I'm gonna give it 110% every single day.
Yes, sir. That's what it's all about. That's
Mm-hmm.
what it's all about. So Dion, what I have is I call them quick fire questions.
Mm-hmm.
No right or wrong answer. I'm just gonna throw some stuff at you. And you
Throw
just
it at me.
all right. The biggest lesson failure has taught you.
That failure is subjective to the mood that you're in.
All right. Finish this sentence. I knew I was walking in my purpose when.
I would receive the worst possible news and it didn't crush me.
Got it. What's something people misunderstand about you?
That my power comes from being around other people when in actuality it comes from being by myself at times.
Got it. Legacy. What is that in one sentence? Or two. It doesn't matter.
Oh, that's easy. Legacy is something that I have no control over. And so I don't even bother thinking about it.
I like that. Finish this sentence. If you were waiting for the perfect moment, here's the truth.
The only perfect moment is whenever you start doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Got it. Now, last, how can my listeners learn more about your companies, follow you on social media, and follow your journey, Dion?
Oh, absolutely. On every social media platform at Dion Dawson, at Dion Chicago Dream, at DIONS Chicago Dream, at Cosmic Crate app on every platform, on YouTube, websites, Cosmic Crate app, DionChicagoDream.com, DionDawson.com. And yeah, engage. I try to be a tangible and present leader. So I think it's important that our leaders, are present online too and responding to people and talking to people. But yeah, supporting is something as simple as, becoming a 5, 10, 20, $30 a month donor on our website. You know what I mean? Whatever. I think that's the beautiful thing of it. And seeing those dollars in action, those dollars buying food and creating jobs and feeding people. So, but other than that, they can also support me by making sure they're okay. It's really, really hard to live right now. So, even them making it to hear this interview may have been a lot. So, hopefully this can inspire or allow someone to know that they can keep going.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There you have it, Dion Dawson. Dion, thank you so much, man. You're doing some
Absolutely.
incredible work, man. And
Appreciate it, brother.
keep pushing and keep going, man. You know what I'm saying? God got you,
Absolutely.
and it's going to keep on elevating you, man. Touch your heart.
Absolutely. I appreciate that, man. Likewise. Thank you for allowing me on your platform. Thank you to all of your listeners. And I'm always around, man. If you ever want to have me back, I'll be happy to be back.
Absolutely. We need to work that out.
Absolutely, brother. Okay.
All right, brother. Appreciate
All
it.
right, man. You have a good one.
All right. Thanks for listening to Real Talk with Reginald D. If you enjoyed listening to Real Talk with Reginald D, please rate and review on Apple Podcasts. See you next time.